Okay, please take your seats so that we can resume the hearing. Please take your seats. Alright, we are resuming our public hearing, and we would like to request the ESCOM to come forward and respond to the questions put forward by the members.
Chair, I see your first question is questions and I'll deal with other questions. Thank you, Kenneth. I think there's quite a long list of questions that have to be answered. I will answer the key strategic ones. And then my colleagues will come and respond to the rest of the questions. I think the first issue that I'd like to touch on is whether we're misleading South Africans. That is the key issue. And as I'm standing in front of you here, I want to state it categorically that we're not misleading you. We're telling you the facts. We're telling you the problem that we're facing. We're telling you the challenges that we're facing and what ought to be done and what we're trying to do. It doesn't pay us dividends to stand in front of you. It wouldn't. When we say we apologize to South Africans, we mean it. Because we really feel that South Africans deserve better than what is happening. Irrespective of whether these problems happen 10 years back or 1 year here, we are facing the issues. The truth of the matter is, we first have to open up and agree to South Africans that we messed up, and that we have the system to turn the place around, and that's what we're saying. We are saying this institution will be turned around, but the tariffs is not the silver bullet. If we get the tariffs and we continue running the business the way we are running it, we're going to be in trouble. The tariff only increases the end. It allows ESCOM to service its debt, but it only allows it. Let me give you the numbers, maybe we'll understand what we're talking about. We are talking about an institution that has total revenue roughly, I'm rounding off, because the CFO provided the numbers. We're talking about the entity that has generated total revenue of roughly about 180 billion. This institution has total cost of roughly about 140 billion. That leaves you with 40 billion right. However, servicing debt and paying that debt this year demands 50 billion. So you have 10 billion that you are borrowing to deal with debt. So we are in financial problems, and we'll continue to be like that. So when we say we are requesting a review or we are requesting an increase of 15% tariff, we are not saying this is a silver bullet that will help us. In fact, what it does, it just allows us to come closer to servicing the debt, but it doesn't allow us to service the total debt just on that. It's a combination of things that we are putting on the table. And that's what we are trying to do here. We said, as ESCOM, we have the responsibility to deal with the cost issues. And that is what we've explained. We said we're looking at the CAPEX, we're looking at the OPEX, over and above that we have identified another initiatives that will save us an additional 33 billion. We might not be able to meet exactly the target because we are facing current challenges like maintenance and CAPEX. But we are working on that. And we went to the South Africans and we said, South Africans, we are in financial problems. This is what we're going to do. Does it solve our problems? That is, if ESCOM does all those things. No, it doesn't. It helps. If we don't do it, we'll be in a worse situation. We say we request a tariff increase of 15%. Are we not aware of the impact it will have on the economy? Are we not aware of the impact it will have on the poor? We are aware of that. But we need to go through that pain because of what has happened previously. Then we said that the shareholder has a role to play here. Because these two things that I've highlighted, whether we increase the tariff by 15% and whether we cut the cost by a bigger margin, are not going to solve ESCOM's problem. ESCOM's problems are about the balance sheet. That's the third element. And unless we deal with that balance sheet, we're able to optimize the balance sheet. That is, we're standing on the balance sheet that we're able to go out in the market and borrow. We are not going to be able to borrow the money. We are facing challenges as we are talking right now, where the government guarantee is not sufficient to allow us to go to the market and borrow. And investors are demanding ever more. When we have raised 52 billion of the 72 billion this year, we have an additional 15 billion that has to be borrowed. And our balance sheet doesn't allow it. So the issue, when we start talking about the capital structure, they ignore the fact that the financial situation, environment, the balance sheet of ESCOM does not allow ESCOM to go out and cherry pick and choose. We want a 15-year bond, we want a 20-year bond. The only long-term bond we're getting from ESCOM is from the global financial development financial institutions like the World Bank and related institutions. That is government to government. Over and above our guarantee, when we go to the market and we say we want to borrow money, it is not out of our choice to get a one-year loan. But we rather have that because the balance sheet doesn't allow creditors to say we're willing to give a 2-year, we're willing to give a 3-year. Just now, we're struggling with the 1 year in the financial market. With the settlement. That has increased to about a year. So, if we do all these things, we continuously improve on the cost, we show that we, as management of ESCOM, we're committed in ensuring that we take good decisions on the one side. Then, the regulator understand the challenges that we are facing. As an independent regulator, they have to make a call. 3, the shareholder understand the dynamics that this institution, which is ESCOM, is on the debt cliff. If we don't get any guarantee, if government doesn't come and talk to us, by next year, we're not going to be able to access the market, that is financial market. And if we are not able to access the financial market, this becomes something of the past. That's the truth. That is the story we're facing. Those are the numbers that the CFO provided. It's painful, I know, but it's the fact. It is the truth. The second issue is whether we are one of the cheapest energy producers in the world. Let me qualify. In the past 10 years, you have reasons, in fact 12, 15, the increase has been exponential. But we still remain. And when we talk about that, it's not us who are saying that. It came from the World Bank. They said you still remain the cheapest. And that was 2016. But in the past 2 years, in 2017, we had a 2.2 increase, and this year, the 5.2. Roughly, in the past 2 years, we have 3.5%. It won't change the status quo. But it does affect you on the bottom line. We're not hiding that. So, if the World Bank says that, and also the independent companies or firms that are doing global research, such as BCG, which is the Boston Research Group, such as Lazard, have stated that. But that doesn't justify the decision you're making. So we're not coming here and saying you should enjoy the cheaper electricity price, don't complain. We are aware of the circumstances that we have gone through. We are aware, which is a question that was asked, that probably when we had met with Musiden and Ingula, and we spent 300 billion from the balance sheet of ESCOM, maybe it should have been done a bit differently. Because it has wiped out the balance sheet of the institution. They're talking about the institution 10 years back that had a debt of 40 billion. Now it has 419 billion. But these are dynamics that we are facing as we are talking now. We need to move forward. We can deal about who did what was supposed to do, all the corruption, but we have to move forward. South Africa needs electricity. And if growth was 5–6% or so, the situation would have been worse. Again, that's the truth.
Mr. Hadebe, in the interest of time and to have about 15 other presenters today, I will ask all the presenters, including the members of the panel, to go straight to the point in responding to the questions so that we can manage the time.
Yes, Chair, I was answering the question.
Yes, thank you very much. No, I appreciate the response. Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you for all the questions. I think the first one with regard to fraud, the investigations and detail we will provide it to you during the course of these public hearings around what we committed to at the last 1 year and the RCA application. We don't have that detail with us today. Maybe let me deal with some of the other bigger issues, maybe the easier responses. To Mr. Modise on the DOE side and the price of electricity, I believe I was clear that said that's the DOE and that's their calculations. I never said it was the Nersa reference to where tariffs should be. That's their calculations of electricity prices based on the draft IOP that they have released for 2018. With regard to the 13% and the shareholder support and the assumptions taken into account the Nersa decisions, at the point in time when that decision was made with government, yes, whatever the respective regulatory decisions was, there was an assumption on future electricity prices, and to balance the equation from a financial analysis, that is the assumptions that were made to allow for a 23 billion rand equity injection which subsequently happened. Yes, I do agree that that process did not entail discussions with the regulator. It was government entities that were discussing that equity injection. If I move on in terms of the maturity of debt and matching long-term debt to long-term assets, I think my CE has touched on it. It's all about, yes, currently in our profile of debt, it averages about 7.5 billion. The DFIs give us about an average 15 billion rand worth of terms and conditions. Obviously, based on the current credit profile and our ratings, as my CE has said, it's very difficult to get longer term money based on our credit matrix at the moment, and more importantly, clarity and certainty not only on tariffs, but policies around this industry and how it will impact on Eskom in the future. So those factors need to be taken into account to try to match more longer term debt to match the assets. This is what lenders are willing to put on the table based on the numbers they're seeing in front of them and some of the unknowns that we currently have on the table. With regard to the EAF and the sales, and yes, the point of highlighting that the application was done 18 months ago, and the members are correct that a lot has changed, in particular around generation performance. The EAF has deteriorated. We will then deal with the coal reserve issue, and chairperson and to the panel, we're busy with that work, and we will also present that detail during the course of these hearings, definitely before we conclude. And we'll go into much more detail at Port Elizabeth hearings around the generation performance in particular. Chairperson, I think the other big point that was touched on was in terms of RAB and the modern equivalent, and is it used to replace the existing. I think we must acknowledge that our application is done in terms of the methodology, which requires a modern equivalent valuation, which we have done. In terms of the detailed recon between the 800 billion and the 1.4, we will present that during the course of these hearings. But I think one point just to make the audience aware, that is not a 29, the 1.4 is what the value of the assets will be in the date when it's implemented. The 800 billion, which was done by the consultants, was a 2016 number, so you need to then bring that forward to the equivalent year. And also we take into account the additional capex that will be spent during the course of the period up until the respective application years. But we'll do a detailed recon as requested by Mr. Bodise. I think with regard to the sacrifice, again, once you have the value, you get the depreciation amount in terms of the methodology. And we were looking from a revenue requirement perspective. As I said, you either ask for the 29% or you try to balance the impact on the consumers. For the equation to balance, then the return on assets that we ask for in the application then becomes your balancing number based on the assumptions you made around the asset base. With regard to the point of is price just the only issue, I think in my presentation I conclude that all three elements need to be looked at, Chairperson. Maybe lastly, I think the question around the RCA, now that the decision is out, will Eskom change its request for the 21.6 billion? We will, during the course, respond to the regulator on that. And I think it was Mr. Nkize also to put on the table what do we see in terms of the implementation and liquidation. Like we've concluded in the previous public hearings, when we get to the end, we'll make a recommendation to the regulator. Chairperson, I didn't go line by line, but I wanted to touch on the big items and the themes that were asked of Eskom. Thank you.
Okay, let me just summarize, because I see my members here, they are quite confused with regards to the sufficiency of the responses. Let me just summarize issues that Eskom is supposed to provide further details on. The first one is the RID, the RAB, and all the questions that were asked in relation to the RAB. And in relation to the RAB, you need to also touch on the other units that are not usable currently. and will not be in use for the next, for 12 months or so. And others, for instance, in RINA 3, UVA 3, what is happening? What kind of adjustments are you going to make on the RAP with regards to those? So that's the first one. And then the second area that you need to focus on, there's a number of questions, is the production plan. How realistic the plan is, and related to the plan is the EAF, right? Because you estimated 78% of EAF. However, given the deterioration that you are talking about, the load shedding, the issues of a shortage of coal stock and all those, and also just the performance of the plants is an issue. And currently, you advised Nersa that you are sitting at around 73% or so, but you are not providing details as to how are you going to then improve this 73% to justify the 78% that you have applied for. So we need details on that. So you need to deal with all of those under the production plan. I think the production plan will require extensive revision on its own, because now we can't work on some of the aspects that are contained in there. And then the other issue that you need to focus on is the issue of the increasing debt. What are the causes of that? You know, and what caused that, and some of the measures that you put in place which will reduce burden on consumers. Yes. The fourth thing, and this relates to the remark made by the CEO, who stated that ESCOM has given due consideration to the impact of the double-digit increase that ESCOM has requested of 15%. However, the application that is before us does not have the details on the impact on consumers. There's no study that has been provided to us to see that impact. Also to appreciate whether indeed ESCOM genuinely considered the impact of the 15%. Not only on consumers, but also on business. So can we get the details on that, in line with the remark that was made by the CEO? That's the fourth thing. The fifth thing that is not dealt with in the application, they are particularly on the, let's talk about the RCA, on the revenue variance. You just touched coldly on the demand factors as well as the supply side factors. However, you did not deal with, for instance, if you talk about price sensitivity, and that also goes to the point made by Mr. Foley regarding ESCOM missing the sales target, because your price has gone up. If your price has gone up, the natural reaction from consumers will be to reduce consumption. So if they reduce consumption, it is because of, so why do you still have to claim from consumers on something that you have not supplied or provided, or something that they do not enjoy? So what kind of adjustments based on price sensitivity? Okay, so we need to see adjustments that ESCOM will make on price sensitivity, based on price sensitivity, but also adjustments based on supply side constraints faced in terms of the performance of the plant that did not achieve the 80% that was on the MYPD 3 decision. And you achieved less, I think you said you achieved 78% in 2017-2018. So there was a set target, a performance target. You didn't meet the performance target. You achieved less, what adjustment? And how do you account for that? Because we need accountability. Those are some of the things that you need to respond to. The other issue that you need to talk about and get people to address is the maintenance. There's always an issue of the maintenance backlog. And you also touched on your presentation with regards to additional funding for maintenance. There is no accountability with regards to the previous money that was granted to ESCOM on maintenance, and to show how maintenance was carried out by ESCOM to account for that, so that we can understand why you need more money for maintenance and how maintenance is going to be done in the next 3 years. And not only that, where Nersa has always been concerned with, about the quality of maintenance and the scoping of that maintenance. So we need those specific aspects to be addressed extensively, and also to justify this increase that is required on maintenance as to how you're going to do it. And that should also be accompanied by aspects of that are included in your maintenance plan. Because if you need more money for maintenance, you need to account how you're going to use that money and how you're going to carry out the maintenance regime and the quality and scoping of that maintenance that needs to improve. Members, did I miss any other? Do you have any additional questions?
Yeah, perhaps, as we delve a little deeper in each section, for instance, on the revenue, in your revenue forecast, can you perhaps have a look at the issue of the small-scale embedded generators, the 200 megawatt per annum that is assumed in RP 2018, how you've taken that into account? You may not, well, what I've read so far, there is no indication. What impact does it have during your planning cycle? But also the impact of other off-grid generators. And I know, and some of these, as I said, when we look at the operating costs, we will go through elements of operating costs, including some of the taxes like the carbon tax. How do you think it's going to impact on you, assuming it does come into play, and what adjustment you would need to make on that? And yeah, some of these will bring us to go together.
Okay. All right. So the other questions that were asked by members, which ESCOM did not respond to, relates to the sales growth, the growth in sales and the assumptions that are made with regards to that. So what we need in the next hearing is the detail on that, as to how did you base the assumptions on with regards to the forecast. Yes. In the evidence. When it comes to the cold reserves, we see that you have not included the cost associated with the plants that are put on cold storage. So we just want to understand what is the plan from ESCOM on that. If you could come back to us on that. And then when it comes to the IPPs, we are concerned about this, the cost. I think there's a cost of about 253 million. It's actually the cost that is both on the RCA as well as the MYPD 4. This is the cost related, or the charge related to the use of the system, transmission system. And we thought that those costs are already included upfront through the connection cost of the IPP companies. So why is it that ESCOM include these charges in the IPP bills? So we need clarity on that.
So the one question that I don't think you covered was around the application being a 50 billion shortfall in terms of the debt servicing. Just add to that, you can come back with a response to it. So in your follow-up now, you made a statement about lessening the impact on the customer. I think there's a question in there that says, well, you seem to have made that decision by applying for the 50 billion shortfall. Should that be ESCOM's decision? Why is it ESCOM's decision? And why does ESCOM not apply for what it needs, which is your slide 15, and maybe then adjust that by whatever your shareholder decides to do, and then the regulator makes a decision on that? Why is it ESCOM deciding up front that it is applying for an adjusted decision?
When it comes to the OCGTs, the 6% CPI escalation on the cost of the for diesel over the period of the MYPD4. Can you clarify the reason for that? And also the risk, given the deterioration of the plant performance, and the risk of overutilization of the OCGTs. I think we see that coming if there's no improvement on the part of ESCOM with regards to plant performance. So if you could also touch on that and the possibility of increasing the utilization of OCGTs. And I think all of that really talks to the assumptions that you have made currently in this application, how realistic those assumptions are. And we're a bit worried, it seems to us, given the situation currently at ESCOM, that some of those assumptions are not going to materialize. So we need then some facts from ESCOM to justify why do you put these targets that you say you're going to perform in accordance with these targets, and the information that you have in justifying those performance targets. I think that is the core issue here. If you can deal with some of those in the next hearing.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes. We do have additional questions. Some of them are coming from the members of the public, but the members of the team here, the panel members, will find a way of trying to get the substance of the key issues that are contained in those questions. Mr. Foley?
Thanks. I don't know when you'll respond to it, but it is a concern. We often see a lot of street lights on during the day, and we know a lot of it's municipal issues, etc. But the question is, where does that cost get catered for? And does it impact on ESCOM? If it impacts on municipalities, it obviously talks to the municipal sustainability and debt recovery issue that you mentioned. And what are the things that can or are being done to solve those problems?
Thank you. There's another question from Mr. Modisi.
I think, as we go through some of the more detail, some of the elements relates to your operating costs and how efficient they are. It's one thing putting the reduction or the increase or lower increase in percentage terms, but in reality what we're looking for is some of those costs in relative terms, in terms that can benchmark against other entities. So you need to be looking at elements such as, by the way, in relation to all your operating costs, employee costs in terms of number of staff members you can do it by megawatt per capacity or kilowatt hours produced. You can look at contractors, management costs. So this comes from a member of the public. So you're going to need to just do those sort of international benchmarks and just say your costs per kilowatt hour, how do they compare in relation to other utilities and stuff. But some of the things that we probably need to deal with when we look at costs, but also things like primary energy. I know we will get an opportunity to go through it in detail. You've got a big assumption of sample code unknown. So you're looking at your procurement of coal and you're saying these are from cost plus or long term and short term, and suddenly there's just 18 under 20% each year of unknown. We think you should be closer to the planning period. How is it that you've got such a big element of unknown? And when we look at the regulatory asset base, we'll probably have to engage and say how you took into account this economic obsolescence, how you took into account, say, put there, why is this overnight cost? It's one thing just stating that overnight costs have just gone up. What we'd like to know is the reasons why, and the issue of useful lives. And then this return on assets, this is return on capital. Because we use a weighted average cost of capital which has got a debt element and equity return. And I know we are applying it again as an ROA. But perhaps let's talk about it, and then carbon tax I spoke about it.
Right, thank you very much. I think those are some of the questions, and therefore you need to then revise your presentation and have members of your team presenting on each of the sections and provide the clarity that is required for both applications. And don't forget the implementation plan or implementation proposal requested by Mr. Sibanda for the RCA in line with the consideration on the economic impact of these increases. And we'd like to thank you very much. We will take those notes. And then when you on the next hearing, please do your presentation, but also list all of these areas that were not responded to sufficiently.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the next presenter, which is Salga. We have the name of Mr. Ntlantla Ngidi from Salga to present. Mr. Ngidi, do you have any objection in taking the oath? All right, may you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to provide before this panel today will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please state your name and your designation at Salga for the record.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ntlantla Ngidi. I'm the head of electricity and energy in Salga National Office.
Thank you. You may proceed with your presentation. You have I don't know if I said 20 minutes earlier on. It looks like I'm catching the cost and trying to be efficient. But I can give you 15 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will try to save you time. Because I think we've been here for a couple of years. I think the arguments are still going to be the same. We're still going to be emotional about the same things over and over. So I think on other issues in my presentation, I'm just going to just run over. You will see that in my presentation mostly there will be issues of clarity that will pose to ESCOM as well, because we did have a consultation exercise with ESCOM, and then we sent some few issues of clarity to ESCOM which were not responded to. I understand that ESCOM was pressed with time and everything, so we're not saying that ESCOM did not want to respond to those, but maybe those issues of clarity will be matters that Nersa will be able to get a response from the ESCOM side, since Salga didn't really get the response. And as I said, maybe it was an issue of time because they didn't want to. Chairperson, I think I'm not going to stress on the introduction part, but we've been talking about this. I think ESCOM also talked about it. There is a dealing between the economic growth and the electricity demand growth. I heard the CEO of ESCOM talk about the pain that we have to go through. He's right. Now, the problem is, I think, if we have to go through that pain of increasing tariffs and having very expensive tariffs, what kind of customers are we going to be delivering in the grid? Because we are giving more and more opportunities for affluent customers to actually leave the grid. It's becoming more affordable for them. We are not really dangling the carrots to the customers that are paying to actually stay in the grid. And I think this is the risk that we are undergoing.
We might give ESCOM 15% plus whatever percentage on the RCAs, but is it really going to turn around things? Are we really going to get these sales that we are projecting? And my answer is no, because we are sitting in municipalities, we are having negative growth. There is an issue around government needing to revitalize the economy. If the economy is not revitalized by government, we're not going to make it. Municipalities are owing ESCOM almost 20 billion. We are working with ESCOM and we realized that it's a government problem. It's not just ESCOM and municipalities. It's not entirely a problem of ESCOM, but it is a problem. And, you know, the reasons why, mostly, we might have those delinquent municipalities, maybe. But I think we all know the questions that municipalities are also going through what ESCOM is going through. If ESCOM is not having sales, ESCOM wants to claim it on the RCA, but municipalities cannot do that, obviously, and we understand the frameworks are different. But obviously, the 40% that purchases that are done by municipalities to ESCOM is due to the customers that must buy from municipalities. And if you don't get those purchases, obviously, ESCOM is not going to get the sales that is projected. And ESCOM only can claim that on RCA. It's a little bit unfair. So I'm just going to roll through. I was just talking about the issues around what is happening and what the models that we need to look at in the industry. There is a change, there is a disruption, and increasing the prices is really going to be motivating the change and the disruption. It's not going to help. As I said, Chairperson, we're not taking the carrot for the paying customers. Instead, we are motivating them to leave the grid, and the non-paying customers, the low class, are the ones who are just staying in the grid, stealing electricity, not paying. As a result of that, municipalities are not going to recover enough to pay ESCOM, and we're going to go through the same debt spiral. So we need to do things differently. We have, as SALCA, hosted a summit in 2018 where everyone agreed that the industry structure as it is no longer working out. Let's ask ourselves questions, very honest and painful questions. Do we still need the monopoly? Yes or no? I'm not going to answer that question. But these are things as government of South Africa that we need to answer. Do we still need a monopoly? Do we still need an EDI that is structured in the manner which is structured at this point in time? Because it's obvious it's not working. The municipalities are being owed over 140 billion, ESCOM is being owed 20 billion. And where does the money going to come from if we keep on increasing the cost of this commodity? So we understand the predicament that ESCOM is going through, but everyone is going through it. There are no holy cows, chiefs. So in the RCA, I just have 2 slides that talk about the RCA, and I'm going to move to MYPD form. I'm not going to go through the decisions that have been made recently on the RCAs, but yes, they are here and they are waiting for us. Once we have approval of the MYPD form, the RCA is going to be liquidated in parallel to the MYPD form. Obviously, customers understand this. If you don't understand this, if ESCOM gets 15% of the MYPD4, parallel to that, there's going to be a liquidation of RCA, which is around 4% plus. So we might have a case of 20 plus, 19, 20 plus % of electricity increase. Not considering the RCA that we're currently talking about now. So that one might be maybe after the MYPD4 and be liquidated parallel to MYPD5, if there's going to be a MYPD5. So it's really, we are really in a tough situation, and we really have to think. You know, I agree with some of the questions that have come from the members around, you know, why do we think maybe increasing these tariffs would be a silver bullet? And I think I'm happy I had the CEO also agree that this is not a silver bullet. And it's really not. But we really have to think hard around how do we respond to these changes that we are going through in order for us not to get these customers that used to be our captive customers to still remain with us and give them a different and better service for them to be able to stay with us and still sustain the industry. But I think the races which we are going is not really going there. What we are doing is we're saying we're not selling more, let's increase. And what does that mean? It means people are going to just look at other ways. Poor people go back to paraffin with the grid. And they are connected, but they go back to paraffin. What does that mean? It means this commodity is unaffordable anymore. But those who can afford it, maybe a lot of people here can afford it. They can, they're thinking about solar. They're thinking about a lot of other, energy sources that they can use in order for them to supplement or to offset the increases of electricity. So, just one slide talking to the RCA. I'm not going to go through that. It's in ESCOM's document. But what I wanted to emphasize there, if you look at that, we all had the ESCOM presentation this morning. This RCA is purely dominated by the states. If you look at it, it's purely dominated by the states. So what does this mean? It means that we must ask the customer to pay more for less purchases that happen. And Southern municipalities, unfortunately, are not for that. We do not support that. And we say there's too much burden hanging over South African customers. We said the RCAs as well that I talked about. And also, we are saying if ESCOM is going to be forecasting higher sales, even if they know from 2012 the sales have been declining, and then later come back again and say we sold less, and because this was allocated, we have a right to claim this from a customer. I think we're not going to crack it in the industry if we're going to keep on doing that. I think we need to do things differently. Let's look at the issue of sales forecast. Let's be realistic. We have a negative growth in municipality, and it's 40% of your purchases in ESCOM. But ESCOM, you are still projecting more sales. I'm not sure where is that going to come from. But I think ESCOM maybe will still explain that. So in essence, Chairperson, this slide is just not supporting this RCA. We don't believe at SAUCA, we don't want to be technical about it, it's an emotional position. We don't think that customers should be punished because there was no sales or there was not enough sales. That's basically it. That's it from our side on the RCA. And with your permission, Chairperson, can I move to MYPD? In terms of MYPD 4, I'm going to briefly talk about the consultation, which I didn't talk about in my introduction. On the 27th of July in 2018, we received a letter from ESCOM. Obviously, ESCOM is to comply to the MFMA Section 42 on the consultation around its application. And we also went through our own internal consultation. So whatever we say is not what SAUCA says, it's what municipalities say. And we hosted ESCOM and municipalities in September, where we all have these very robust deliberations with ESCOM. They're always constructive. ESCOM also gives us a lot of response around the issues we have or the questions we have, issues of clarity given also. And I think at the end of that workshop, we agreed with ESCOM that we were going to send them our comments to the application, which we did. I must say, this Chairperson, that all was within the 40-day that is required by the MFMA. most of our content of the document that we sent to ESCOM was some issues or more issues of clarity, which hopefully Nersa will be able to ask ESCOM, and ESCOM will be able to respond to. As I said earlier when I was introducing my presentation, that it might have been the issue of time from ESCOM's side not to be able to respond. But I think also the regulator has the mandate over ESCOM, where ESCOM is actually forced, I'm looking at them, forced to respond to the questions that are actually asked by the regulator. So I'm going to talk about the customer centricity, and I did say, I think even with us municipalities, if we're still going to increase tariffs with double digits at 15+%, we are not being customer centric. We can call customer centric all we want in our documents and application, but that is not customer centric. It means we are out of touch with the reality. And we know that the issue, we've talked about this, unemployment is still rising. And people who are employed and can afford are still living the grid. And this is what is happening in municipalities. And due to that, municipalities are unable to buy more from ESCOM, or even pay ESCOM sometimes. So, the commercial customers, I want to talk about that, especially with the disruption that is happening. And we see this happening a lot in the metros. A lot of these shopping malls are now moving off the grid, or even moving 80% of what they used to buy from municipalities, and they are moving towards other sources of energy. And soon we're going to have storage. In other countries, storage is even being used through PPA setups, where an entity will set up a storage and a PPA with a commercial building of 10 or 15 years, and then just supply them with electricity. So we're going to have that happening a lot, especially since we are expecting the prices of storage to go down very soon. So let's think about those things. You know, the change that is coming versus us wanting to try to increase tariffs to address the financial issues we have. Maybe it's justified that we have to increase electricity, but there's something we need to think hard about. Is the economy really allowing for this? I think that's the question that remains unanswered, but I did say that the government needs to revitalize the economy of South Africa so that there is soft landing against the ever increases of commodities and services. And right now there's no soft landing, it's hard landing for customers. And also ESCOM refers to structural shifts in the country which would affect sales volume. But we really didn't see that in the financial models of ESCOM. Also, the document explicitly mentions initiatives to grow sales volume from customers. And I'm going to ask this question again, which customers are going to be buying more? Because the customers that we are targeting, the industries and the smelters, they are all in distress. And a bigger percentage of their input cost is electricity. We must think about that as well. In terms of the sales volumes and projections, so in the previous year, 2018-19 revenue application, it showed that how sales volume rebasing was required, and this is when actual volumes were on a decline since 2012. And projections of ESCOM are still indicating a positive growth. And also municipalities are experiencing negative growth, and this number is at 2%. And I did say that it represents 40% of your revenue in ESCOM. And if 40% of your revenue is actually experiencing a negative growth, they think differently of how you actually want to implement this ever-increasing prices. Some of the issues of clarity that hopefully will be able to be answered by ESCOM will be endeavored with ESCOM as well. Hopefully they will take note of this and maybe answer in their presentation or maybe in their responses. But there are some of the questions we asked in our document that given that the actual sales volume of 2017-18 declined, is ESCOM not enthusiastic to project growth of almost 1% on local sales for year 1 as well as for year 3? And also, what could be the basis of ESCOM to forecast 8.4% growth in international sales in year 1 on the back of a forecasted decline of 2.4%? So maybe ESCOM can explain what has happened with this jump of the forecast of 8.4% when there was a forecast of a decline of 2.4%. And also, what could be the basis of ESCOM's forecast of 3.8% growth in international sales in the year 3? And the basis of the increase of 17.67% in the selling price of SPAs in year 2. And as I said, Chairperson, I don't think maybe I want to go through all these questions.
We have 3 minutes, Mr.
Yes, because we did ask those questions to ESCOM, and hopefully with the presentations we have with you, you'll be able to get those, impose those questions to ESCOM, and for ESCOM to respond to this. And I think I'm going to skip the depreciation parts of the application, but there were issues that we had around annual financial statements, which were talking different numbers, and the application talking different numbers. So there we were saying there's no alignment and it's a bit confusing. And I'm going to move on primary energy as well. We picked up a couple of discrepancies from the application and the annual financial statement as well. And also there were issues around ESCOM's own generation costs not increasing on year 2 and 3, but there was an expected increase this year as well. And I think we also talked about, we need to understand how ESCOM is actually going to, or maybe ESCOM and government is actually going to manage the issue around the contracting on the coal, and also the issue, to address the issue of prices of coal. Because obviously the industry or the market of coal as it is right now, it favors more the international players, and they are buying more of the coal, and ESCOM obviously is left with the raw quality of the coal. And therefore, even it's hard to even manage the issue of the contracts and reducing the prices of the coal. Because I have less time, I'm just going to move very quick. There were questions we had around imports as well, where ESCOM expects about 25% increase in year 1, but only 6% increase in the subsequent years. And also, the output is dropping by 20%, but the ESCOM is actually expecting the increase of around 25%. And around MYPDs, I think this one I'm going to just swift through, because we wanted to get clarity around the MYPDs that are coming and their commercial operation and the effect of that in the application, so that we don't pay for something that really is not there yet. There were questions also we had around operations and maintenance. I think the panel already, asked ESCOM the questions that we wanted to ask. There were issues around environmental levy as well, and we were asking ESCOM why is the system average auxiliary is increasing over the years, and even why are the auxiliaries at 8%? Why just keep them at 5% or less? Cost containment, I think it's been talked about. I'm not going to stress on it, but I think we all agree that there still need to be more cost containment exercises that we have to go through as a country and not just ESCOM. Going through to conclusion, I think we submit that in the current economic climate, the ESCOM proposed tariff is way above inflation. I know that ESCOM is a particular argument around us making an argument on inflation. We understand that, but we still think it's way above the cost of living adjustments that are happening every year. So the cost of living is actually trailing behind, and the commodities are actually flying sky high. Also, we acknowledge the tariff rationalization that is being done by ESCOM as part of the concessions that ESCOM made with SALGA. And also we acknowledge the increases that are going to take place in municipalities as a category of the ESCOM customers. And also we think there is a need maybe for Nersa to consider more performance-based regulation. We don't know how to craft that, but we think maybe we need to be more vigilant to ESCOM's performance vis-a-vis what ESCOM asks from us as the public. And ESCOM needs to be made accountable for that. And I think I will just jump to the last one, that we appreciate and sympathize with ESCOM financial challenges. Everyone is going through this, and we entrust the regulator, as the regulator has done in the previous years, to do the right decision, and the decisions will be in line with the Electricity Regulation Act, which amongst others must look at affordability, the universal access, and also to allow efficient utility to recover its costs with reasonable margins. And I actually call them efficient purpose. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngiti, for the presentation and also for the outline of issues that you are requesting the regulator to get clarity on for ESCOM. If you have a piece of paper and the pen, I will check if you have any questions of clarity from the regulation.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. From my side, I think your presentation seems to point at the structural and systematic challenges that are being faced by ESCOM, and therefore talking through the issues of policy review, as well as noting that I think that must be shared by the shareholder or borne by the shareholders, of course, and not necessarily be lumped to the customers. I take it that the Nersa management team will consider the issue of performance-based regulation that you raised, and that ESCOM will respond to the questions being directly raised to it by your presentation. On slide 8, you talk of the RCA needing to prescribe, but what if RCA were to be in favor of the customer? Because if you look at it, the way the value of the bill is that if you've got a fixed asset base and then you are pushing a lot of sales, then you then have a reduction. And therefore one would say that in the beginning, if you properly forecast the sales, you then have a higher tariff, and therefore you then most likely go and have a RCA that are in favor of the customer. Why propose this scrapping altogether? Also, you then have a situation where the issue here is about the regulatory asset base that has already been raised. As in a situation where you've got the regulatory asset base going up, but the volumes going down, definitely then you're having a situation where even your return will not be able to help you. So I'd just like you to respond on that. And then there's this slide 17, where I just want to ask on bullet 1 of slide 17. Are you proposing that there be indicative tariffs for a particular new project that ESCOM seeks to embark upon prior to it being included in the asset base? And then on slide 25, on the issue of where you are looking at the DESPA and that the old argument that the electricity is very affordable compared to the rest of the world, that it is not well received. I think from my side, it's not a question of whether we receive it well or not, but it's a question of us being factual or not. So would you oblige where we say that maybe the same would apply also to ESCOM itself, to say, should we have a comparative table to put this argument to rest and see where we stand? Because I think that it's important for the public, or even the general public, to know where we stand with respect to the cost of electricity in the country. Yeah, and then the other thing is, maybe lastly from my side, is when it comes to you having any information that you talk to what you may deem to be the optimal tariff Because one would take it that you would reach a situation where the tariff, irrespective of whether you increase it, it will not be able to compensate for the loss in volume to the extent that it will actually be, exacerbating the situation, pushing us into a debt spiral. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kisa. Mr. Philip, you have any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Singh.
Chairman, there are two questions. Thank you, Mr. So, with respect to the RCA, come up here to say you don't support the application. However, you sort of like say that it's more of an emotional decision. What ESCOM as indicated previously, they are simply applying the methodology which then requires us to, at a particular point in time, look back and see whether certain assumptions are materialized or not and make those adjustments. So I think it's important for you as an organization to probably firm up that argument or that rejection because we are operating in a very legislated environment, and it will be difficult for us to take your argument purely based on your emotion. I think you need to assist us as a legislator to, if you were to consider your rejection, the basis of needs to be really firmed up. So so there's a point that ESCOM is making also in the application, and this is with respect to municipal debt, which is increasing over the duration of the MYPD for application. And you're not saying anything around that. So I would have expected you to probably comment around the issues of municipal debt. What is it that as an organization you're doing? And as the CEO has indicated, I think they need all the help that they can get. And I think that's one part where you as an organization probably should be giving us an indication of what it is with respect to this problem municipal debt in general.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slavins. Can you keep the notice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ngidi. I think, like you, I would like to know answers to the questions that you asked in your presentation. So perhaps, with indulgence, Madam Chair, at some point ESCOM can provide some of those answers so that we understand where things are. But the one thing though, that the message that seems to be getting from your presentations, it appears to me almost like frustration with ESCOM as your major supplier. And you mentioned a few things, industry structure no longer working, some guys supporting municipalities who are trying to get off grid power, sort of take and that sort of thing. But also the issue of customers not paying municipalities and then municipalities not paying ESCOM. The question that I just need to understand though is in your engagement with ESCOM, is there no understanding from ESCOM or appreciation of you as a major customer? And I'll give an example. You're saying you're projecting decline of 2% in your electricity volumes, yet ESCOM is ignoring that. And what's the point of consulting if your views are not taken into account? And do you find that, is it for that reason that we find that ESCOM is overstating the sales? Is there other methodologies that can be used? Should there be strengthening in maybe rules to ensure that ESCOM does take your views into account as opposed to to just meeting for the sake of meeting, and your views being ignored. So I think that's the first question. What's the point of the consultation? But maybe something that's allied to that. And now you mentioned it in relation to the RCA. Do you think there's a problem with, I think, the regulatory regime in South Africa? Should we, I know you mentioned that perhaps we need to relook at other alternative performance-based regulation and maybe we can engage a little bit more. Why is it that there are no market signals? Why is it that, in your mind, that I know in your slide you said the RCA is dominated by sales, and you don't support the RCA, but it appears that somehow our methodology doesn't allow ESCOM to obtain market signal to say revenue or demand has dropped, reduce costs. Remember, all the thing that arises out of lower sales, all ESCOM is saying is we spend the money, we're maintaining capacity, we're maintaining costs on the basis of what we thought the sales were going to be. Now sales have dropped, we're still keeping those costs, so customers you pay. It's your burden to carry. It is something in the manner in which the regulating does not providing the appropriate market signal to an important operator. And how do we know that? And how do you think we should give that market signal to ESCOM, say in the new MYPD 4 application? How should we be getting, say, ESCOM to say, please act very soon as you understand that customers are going off grid or your sales is dropping. Don't keep your costs as they are and expect either higher RCA or higher tariff. How do you, in terms of solution, how do you think we should deal with this? And then the next issue is I think most of this will be covered in the question that you're asking. Why is it ESCOM is ignoring the questions that you're raising? Maybe let's leave it at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Mr. Yeke, you've got 5 minutes to get straight to the questions.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I'm going to start at the back. Those questions that are still fresh in my mind. Just to emphasize on market signals, maybe it's not 100% true that there are no signals. Because the previous year, ESCOM does experience some signals on the sales, but still projects more, which is something we don't understand. We really don't comprehend that, because there are those kind of signals that show you that this is what's happening in the market, you know what's happening in the industry, you know what's happening in your sales in certain customer categories that you have. And once you get those realities, you should try very hard to actually align, because it's the next or the closest reality you have. But we still get more forecasting, that doesn't talk to the reality.
What is the problem? What is the problem? I think also the question relates to the problem that is more challenge, that is the gaps in the methodologies, or maybe not the methodology, but maybe the understanding, or is it the understanding of ESCOM, that if they come to Nersa and say, we will achieve X amount of sales, and for us to achieve X amount of sales, we will have to have the energy availability at 80%, and we'll have to produce X amount, right? So, is it the understanding of ESCOM that simply because they've put it right up there, and therefore they are entitled to it? without accountability as to their performance. Because if you are given a revenue, it's an allowed revenue. You are given the right to earn it, not to be entitled to the revenue that is there. So is it a question of maybe fraud methodology, or is it an issue of an understanding from ESCOM to say, well, we are entitled to it, so that is why we'll always focus at a higher level, so that when we come back we say we didn't achieve the X amount, there's a gap and therefore must get it. Is that the issue here?
I think my answer would be twofold. I think one, maybe we need more flexibility in the methodology to take cognizance of the realities. But two, also, I think exactly what you said, for us, which is why I'm going back to Mr. Sibanda's question around emotional position. Because we've been talking about the issues around, incorrect forecasting for the past 4 or 5 years, but it still remains. And, for us, it's that, getting to that point where we think maybe just ESCOM is just being a little bit, I don't know if it's the right way if I say naughty or something, but I think that's what is coming in my mind, because we know the reality, the signals are there, as much as they might not be as close to reality as possible, but there is that little bit of a signal in the previous day of how you did with your sales. You can't be projecting more when you know what happened in the previous year. The previous year is not a very long time. I think there's a little bit of hope that we need to look at. More flexibility in the methodology to look at realities and adjust, and then maybe ESCOM to be, held more accountable about this, incorrect forecast. Because I've been with Salva for over 4 years. Every time I come here, I always complain about incorrect forecast. There's something wrong.
Do you think that is there anything that needs to be done in the methodology to make it even much clearer to them that if we said you are going to get X amount of revenue, that revenue is not guaranteed, it's not yours, you must earn it. So if you haven't performed to achieve that revenue, don't think that that's what you will get or you are entitled to. Is there something that is not clear in the methodology that needs to be clarified to ESCOM so that these overstated assumptions can then be resolved or addressed?
Thank you, Chair. I think I will have a specific answer, but I would say that as Salga municipalities would be happy to work with Nersa to look at that. Because hence we actually suggesting a performance-based regulation maybe to be more entrenched in the methodology itself. But we don't have specifics at this point. But we are happy to work with the industry, ESCOM and Nersa to have a look if it's something that is considered in terms of that performance-based regulation. Okay, I'm going to go to the arguments on the cost of electricity. I think we discussed that with ESCOM even in our workshop. And our argument is always, when we say electricity maybe in Kenya is much more expensive than in South Africa, what we always ask ESCOM is look at the access levels. The access levels of electricity in South Africa is 90%, and on that 90%, we have different categories of customers in terms of their income levels. But in Kenya, you don't have a choice. If you can't afford electricity, you won't have it. Hence, their access levels is at 20% or less. So our government policy also is different to other government policies like you have in Kenya. They will remain in that 20% access for a long time because they are striving to actually be up there with the prices of electricity. And there's less access, and this is why in our argument we say 90% access means you will have more different income levels within your customers, and that will means there is a lot of cross-subsidization that happens. But in other countries, you don't find those cross-subsidization that you find in South Africa because of the high access of electricity, which is a government policy. There was a question around any information that may assist to have optimal tariff to look at the debt spiral. I think a year ago I did present that Salga was commissioning a study on the impact assessment of MYPD 3. Obviously, it's talking to MYPD 3 and its RCAs, and that study is actually being finalized. We are going through a final assessment of the report from the consultant, and I think once we have that, we'll be able to share with the regulator some of the recommendations and the findings that we have. There are policy recommendations, there are regulatory framework recommendations, and there are several recommendations around how the methodology should be looked at and what needs to happen in the future. And we're happy to share that with Nersa as we finalize the study. And I think I hear the concern from Mr. Spanta, the regulator member, that we must frame up the rejection. And I think this is why I said it up front that there's no how we can be technical about the issue of sales, because it's always our painful point between the discussions between us and ESCOM. And I know at this point in time, we know that in the next 2 to 3 years, we're not going to have increases in the sales of electricity. Maybe let's look at, do we still need to have a component of sales in the RCA? Or if we have it, let's have a look at it on how we allow that. That's how I can actually respond to that now. Let's look at the sales, because we know that, in accordance with the sales, or with regards to sales, the customers in the next 3 to 5 years are not going to have a benefit in the RCA. If anyone differs, they can tell me why they think that. In terms of what can we say about the municipal debt, I did allude to the fact that we are working with ESCOM and government, because I think government has realized that the issue of debt is now a government problem. It's not just an ESCOM problem, it's not a SALGA problem, but we are working with task team between ESCOM and SALGA and municipalities, where we have identified some of the key issues and key challenges that are taking place in municipalities, some of them being revenue management and collection, issues of metering and prepaid management, and prepaid metering, issues of capacity building in municipalities, providing capacity in municipalities to be able to respond to, the operational requirements of their departments. So we are working together with ESCOM and government to look and address all the issues that we've identified as key challenges that are a cause to the debt issue. But it's not just that. There is an issue around the citizens of the country, changing their mindsets around paying for services rendered. Because that's the problem we have also. There are cases where customers really cannot pay, but we have a lot of customers also that can pay but do not, because of maybe the mindsets that we created. I'm not sure if it's that, but we have done some audits in municipalities where we found customers like SPAR, they have breached the meter. And what kind of an attitude is that from a customer? We've gone through industries, small industrial customers that have breached meters or have mingled or fiddled with the meter to actually run slower. So this is actually why I'm saying it's not just the customers that cannot afford that are stealing electricity. It's just that sickness that we have currently in the country around.
You only have a minute.
Thank you. I'm just checking if there is any other question that I have left out. There was a question around depreciation. My apologies, Chairperson, I forgot what it was about.
Can you please provide some of the questions in writing, further clarity in writing, including the one that was asked by Mr. Sibanda, because we seem to have some more details on it as to how SALGA is tackling the issue of municipal debt.
Thank you very much. God.
All right, we are going to break for lunch. I was hoping that I'm going to take Mr. Ted Blom to present before lunch, but I think it would be good if we can have him start right after lunch. lunch break so that we can still be kept awake and the audience to be awake. And we've got a massive task when we come back after the break, Mr. Tedlock, to keep the audience alive. Thank you very much. We will be back in the room at 25 to 2. What time did you do? No. Where did it go? 2 o'clock. Lunch will be back